that's the nature of the game, right? Is like that competitive resource capture game tends to coalesce who controls what resource. Strategy, Saylor is now a player. He went from being like a minor player, like he's a pawn, like he's now ramping up to be like a bishop or a knight. If the Bitcoin thesis plays out, he's going to be 100% the most powerful queen on the board that's ever been, right? My whole life I was raised in a libertarian family. Like my dad was like a hardcore libertarian. Like we had a picture of Ayn Rand on the wall. I was the one guy walking around talking about the gold standard and we got to get to like sound money. And they go, yeah, you put one word on a washer. I go, no. It's all words, one washer. And they go, oh, I think you might see a very different caliber of player come in because they can take advantage of the rule, whereas the traditional player might be hindered by the rule, you see? So it shifts the power dynamics on the field, it shifts team tactics, it shifts everything just because there's a rule you can't break. If you own Grand Central Station, buying a Lamborghini doesn't mean anything, right? So when I see the Bitcoiners that are kind of like, oh yeah, there'll be signs that I go, well, by the time you get there, it probably won't matter as much.
Hi, Danny. How are you doing?
I'm awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on again.
Thank you so much for coming on again. It was really cool last time. It felt like it's probably like a year and like 2, 3, 4 months ago.
Yeah,
like
it's been a minute.
It's been a long minute.
Yeah, for sure.
For the few people that haven't seen like the first podcast and haven't seen you around in any other podcast, give some overview of who are you and why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a long-winded answer because I think I'm sort of a unique figure in the space so far. I started off in the film and television industry, and I worked in that for about 15 years in like a tech-forward industry. But my whole life, I was raised in a libertarian family. Like my dad was like a hardcore libertarian. Like we had a picture of Ayn Rand on the wall. So by the time I was like in the 80s and 90s, like when I was in high school and getting into college and stuff, I was the one guy walking around talking about the gold standard and we got to get to like sound money. And people looked at me like I was an absolute lunatic. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you sound like gold standard? What do you, I mean, it sounded like an insane person. And so like people talk about like Peter Schiff today. But he was like a guy that I followed back then because he was talking about sound money principles. So when I hear people kind of bagging on him, I'm always a little like, come on, man. Like that guy kind of helped in a very long-winded way orange pill me a long time ago, you know? So from there, I kind of went and I'm what you might call like a late bloomer. Like I got a law degree much later in life, and then I went and got a master's and did a bunch of public service work in like the prison system and things like that, and then came back and sort of ditched all that for Bitcoin. But in terms of my Bitcoin journey, right around 2010, I was into Bitcoin. Like I was trying to mine Bitcoin. I wrote a paper, anti-money laundering paper back in 2014. And I talk about like how Bitcoin works and what the risks are. And I was like, you know, in that paper, I talk about how things like chain analysis now were going to be functioning then because I was, you know, sort of at the forefront of that research then. So like I've been around it a long time, but I never, unfortunately, this is where I'm going to kind of dog on Peter Schiff. That sort of put me in this space of like, well, that's not real money. That's not, it's a fake internet magic money, Ponzi coin, whatever you want to call it. Like all the same criticisms he has today, I've sort of took in then, right? So as a kind of a pseudo early adopter, like I got Bitcoin very early on. Like I had to send a guy a money order or something like that because I couldn't figure out how to mine it, right? Like I just couldn't get it to work. And I lacked the technical skills to get that going. But like shortly after I got it, the price nuked. Like it went down like 50%. So I just deleted it. Oh, this is a scam, whatever. And I never went back. I went and bought gold instead. So it wasn't for another 10 years later that I finally came back to Bitcoin. And it was actually like the Saylor Breedlove series. I think some people kind of poo-poo the idea, but I go, it really fundamentally transformed what I was sort of thinking about Bitcoin. And another kid, Jason Lowery, the software book, a lot of people sort of shit on his head. I'm like, it was a master's thesis. Like, the guy's a student that wrote a student paper that he just put out in book form. And so you want to sit here and dog on him. And I don't agree with every word that the guy says, but there were some elements of that really sort of cemented the deal and made me have this transformation from like, Bitcoin is like a crypto to Bitcoin is like a speculative investment to Bitcoin is this to like, oh, Bitcoin fundamentally transforms the entire global political economy. And that's where I got really like, oh my God, this is not just like, oh, it's new money or it's a way to transact. It is a fundamental rule change that has never happened in the history of mankind. And that's why I look at Bitcoin and go, this is the most important invention ever in the history of mankind. More than fire, more than electricity, more than heavy in air flight. It's Bitcoin 100%. So that's sort of my long-winded journey to from libertarian gold bug when I was a high schooler talking about we need to ban the post office to today where I go, Bitcoin changes everything.
I love that. Do you have a favorite kind of comparison of history, like the fire, the wheel, internet, electricity, the printing press? There's so many different avenues you can compare Bitcoin to. Do you have like a favorite one where you're like, maybe that comes the closest to like the scale of it?
No, oddly enough. That's the funny thing about it is like when I talk to people about it, I think I sound hyperbolic when I say this, right? Like people go, well, come on, it's not that big of it. And I go, I don't think you understand what that is. And like that book that I wrote and I shared with you a long time ago, I explored a lot of that because all of the research papers I did, like I did a paper on bankruptcy law, I did a paper on securities law, I did that AML paper, it was like a 4-part series for the Banking Law Journal. And as I was digging through all that stuff, it was all a historical analysis, right? And the beauty of when you do legal research and legal publishing and legal scholarship, you have this dense history that's all recorded. It's all written down, right? So when people talk about the history of the world, it's like someone else's third-party take on this. But the history of the law is people in conflict and people resolving conflicts through the written word. And so you have this rich history to sort of parse out and parse through, and you can kind of see the development of things. So what was your question again? I'm sorry, before I go wandering off in the weeds.
I just asked you what the comparison.
So the comparison, right. Thank you for, I'm trying to arrive at a point. But in terms of a comparison, when you look at that kind of thing, you go, well, fire was transformative, obviously, right? Like we're not as cold anymore. And you go, electricity, pretty big deal, right? Like none of this happens without electricity. So huge deal. But when you talk about all of this is still fundamentally rooted in terms of like commerce, right, and trade, and how all this stuff gets created and everything like that. And I think because of that historical analysis, I have a very different take on like where all this comes from and what, like that question, what is money, right? I think people start their analysis about 10,000 years too late. And so I start my analysis 10,000 years prior, and I come to very different conclusions. But so when you say what's the impact, I go, well, since the dawn of agriculture, the impact is Bitcoin is the only property ever in the history of mankind that you can own, but it can't be taken. And if you think about what all this is, what I refer to in the book is like what we're effectively in is a competitive resource capture economy, right? So there are major players on the board. Their job per the game is capture and control as many resources as you can. Period. That's it. That's the whole thing. And there are no rules because you cannot enforce any rules in the game of competitive resource capture. So when people talk about politics or left-right or little paper promises or constitutions or manifestos or whatever it is, they're all presuming that these rules somehow have some effect on the game of competitive resource capture, but they do not. They're just refinements on the game, but they're all levers that you can pull. So if you can find a new way to capture resources, then you are allowed to exploit that because no one can stop you from exploiting that. Karl Marx comes along, writes a little manifesto, says, hey, the people at the top of that hierarchy got to capture resources. And resources are everything from wood to coal to gold to people, right? So if you add a rule that can't be broken in a game that has no rules, oops, sorry, I bumped your mic there, but that fundamentally changes how that game gets played because you now have an actual enforceable rule in a game that has existed for 12,000 years with no rules. So you go, well, what does that do to your game? It fundamentally changes it on every possible level. So you go, well, what do you compare that to? You go, there's nothing you can compare the Bitcoin rule set to anything in the history of man because that changes the game that we've been playing for 12,000 years to a different game. It's a new game now. And I don't think people fully appreciate what that means yet. I think people are still like, oh, number go up, or it's going to be money, or it's black market money, or we use it for transactions, or we can avoid the government. So all true, all very important things. And there's that extra element to it where I go, and you're playing a different game now. And everybody has to play by a new rule. And so if you took like European soccer, football, proper football, world football, however you want to call it, you go, imagine that game with no rules. Just anything goes. Like you're going to have people getting knifed and, like it would be chaos, right? So they self-select rules, which is how that game is developed. Because the first people that kicked a ball around and tried to get it through a net, they didn't have rules. They just kind of thought it was like, well, this is what we're doing. But then someone got hurt. Someone would say, that's cheating. So they go, okay, well, this is a rule. This is a rule. All those rules can be violated at any time. There's nothing, there's no force field, there's no magical thing that says you can't do this, you can't do an offside kick, you can't punch somebody, you can't trip somebody. All those rules are violable. And you can strategically violate those rules for gain and advantage. And you can force people to cheat. And you see what I'm saying? But if you introduce a rule into soccer, football, where you cannot break that rule, then they go, you can break all the other rules, you can tinker around the margins, but there's one fundamental thing that can't be violated. That changes the game of football forever. It's going to be a completely different game. It's going to develop in ways you can't predict because you have rules you can't violate. So when I talk about Bitcoin and when people say, why do you think Bitcoin's important? I say, because there is a rule change in the global political economy, the entire world, and the way the entire world is operated for the better part of 12,000 years. There's one piece of property that a sovereign can't violate, a person can't violate, no one can violate. There's a rule, there's an unbreakable rule in the global political economy. So what does that do to that game? Forever different. From the moment that was introduced, it was a possibility. By 2024, when the major economic players start adopting it, it's an inevitability now. Like when Saylor talks about this is going to go here and here and here. I know I'm not speaking for him, obviously, but when he talks about that, I go, that is the thing, whether he acknowledges it, realizes it, or has fully embraced that idea or not, sort of irrelevant because you have to play by the rule. If you don't play by the rule, you lose. You're always going to lose. You're always going to be incrementally losing further. You're going to lose ground. So when that shifted to the major economic players adopting it and saying, okay, we'll play by that rule too, they haven't realized it yet, but they're all playing a different game now. And the way that plays out, I think, is going to be very positive. I think it's going to be very beneficial for everybody, whether they hold Bitcoin or not, whether they transact in Bitcoin or not. I think it fundamentally changes the way humans interact from probably January 2024 on. I know it sounds hyperbolic. I know it sounds like Pollyanna and sort of crazy. And I still 100% believe that. And not from like just, oh, I think it's good, but like from deep thought on the matter, you know. It's
the crazy people that see the future.
Well, no one can predict, right? But but that's sort of, so as I promised, I'll get to a point. How does this compare? There is no comparison. There literally, you cannot possibly come up with another thing that you go, what is a bigger change in the world than fixing or setting a rule that no one can break? You go, well, you introduce one rule to a game that's been in chaos for 12,000 years.
Is then the game that individuals can play get as many Bitcoin as possible?
Could be. I mean, and that is an strategy. That is a way to approach things, right? The thing is, if you have powerful players that are moving pieces on the board and their goal is to capture resources, right? If they go, well, the most important resource that we can capture is one that we can't steal. Like we have to reorient our process to capture more of those resources. If you want to be the most powerful piece on the board, you want to be the queen on the chessboard, so to speak, you want to be able to move anywhere you want to go, if the most valuable resource, the most important resource is the resource that has to be done through trade, then we need to do things differently. So if you think about all the economic thought and weight and everything that goes into creating everything that exists around us, the infrastructure, the lights, we take a lot of this for granted, but there's an enormous amount of effort and energy that goes into maintaining this sort of illusion of like we're safe from nature kind of thing, right? So if in order to facilitate all of that, and the prize at the end of that is you need to acquire this valuable property that you can't steal, then you need to do this much better than everybody else. You need to orient towards productivity. You need to orient towards savings. You need to orient towards low time preference, or you start losing ground to people that do. Whereas right now, it's the exact opposite. It's all high time preference stuff. The more you can cut costs, the more you can cut quality, and the more you can keep lying to people and convincing them that it's the same quality while you're reducing it right in front of them, while you're cutting back workforce, while you're doing all these sort of things just to keep up with the sovereign debasement, because that's the unit of account, right? Then the incentives are aligned incorrectly. And they have to be. There's, people say, oh, they're evil, they're greedy, they're doing this for these nefarious reasons, whatever. I go, no. That's you don't have a choice, because there is no choice. If the sovereign debase is at 2% a year, you have to degrade 2% a year, or you have to improve 2% a year, right? But if the sovereign degrades at 12% a year, you go, the only thing you can do. You can't improve 12% a year. Like there is some threshold. You can improve a lot. Like if you're a super fat guy and then you want to get to be a pretty thin guy, you can improve a lot for that first part, right? But if you have to keep getting 12% thinner, you go, well, there's a limit to that. Like you're going to run into constraints. And after that, things are going to have to degrade. So if you're in a savings technology, if you're in a thing that says, well, we need to be productive and thinking low time preference, and we need to focus on quality and making sure that people are doing better so we can do better, then that, like I said, that trickles through everything. So even people, I think, that never hear about Bitcoin, don't understand it, wouldn't know a hardware wallet from, their shoelace.
USB stick.
From a USB stick, they're all going to benefit because of the downstream effects of what happens when the players on the board, the people that are actually moving the pieces, have a rule that they have to follow.
It's a beautiful thing where, of course, you benefit more from Bitcoin when you get in earlier. Like
yes.
That's a very natural thing.
Correct.
But even the last person is better off. I love I went through this ethical thing of thinking, if you can be any person, like you're waking up tomorrow as a different person and you don't know which person you are. It's just like you could be Jeff Bezos or you could be a random kid in a slum in like Brazil or like Africa or anywhere.
Yeah.
And you don't know which person you will be.
Right.
What money system do you want the world to have?
Right.
Do you want the fiat system to have or do you want the Bitcoin system?
Right.
If you know you will be Jeff Bezos, like you don't care. Like
it doesn't matter.
Probably fiat is even better for you.
Yeah. Well,
but if you don't know which person you will be, I say you probably stick with the Bitcoin system because it's a safer bet for everyone.
Yeah.
And when you make that mind shift of like taking you completely out of the question and thinking about everyone in the world, you're like, that Bitcoin system is better for literally everyone.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting point to come to with the ethics of Bitcoin and the moral of Bitcoin, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I agree with you 100%. And when you think about like the global political economy, you think about like all the complexity that's involved and all the trade that's involved and all the settlement that has to occur. And like, I think people give Michael Saylor grief because he goes, oh, well, he's just now like state coin or whatever. He's, he just wants to prop up the system. And I go, well, but I've heard him speak on that and I agree with him because you'll hear like the ANCAP folks and coming from a hardcore libertarian camp who grew up libertarian, like by the time I was 8, I was talking about we need to ban the post office, right? Like that's not a normal 8-year-old kid talking about stuff like that, right? Like the state is causing problems. And yet, as an adult and after doing all the legal research and everything else, I've come to the conclusion, like, well, some of these institutions are necessary. And you don't necessarily want to smash the state, so to speak, because for all the sort of fits and starts of the global resource capture game that we've been playing, we've arrived at a point where a lot more people are doing a lot better than they were, say, 100 years ago, right? And that is largely greased on the wheels of fiat rails and fiat ideologies and fiat systems and, rights and manifestos and all that kind of stuff have all been like little iterations of the game that the players are tweaking all the time, trying to go like, hey, can we capture more resources if we have communism, right? Can I capture more resources under pseudo-capitalism? Can I capture more resources under fascism? Or whatever ism you want to sort of attach to it. But those are large economic players moving pieces around, right? And so we, as resources ourselves, we go, oh, well, we want this and we want that. But that's kind of like the cow asking for better food at the feedlot, right? The farmer doesn't ultimately care. The farmer is going, well, can I maximize how much milk I get out of that cow if I feed him grass rather? But how much does the grass cost? And, maybe. But there's no concern about like the cow's rights or the cow's feelings or the cow. It's just a cow, And for most of the economically powerful players, we're wood, we're gold, we're oil, we're labor. We are things that help them put resources together so they can capture more resources. We're just another resource in that chain. So, like to abolish everything is to like, well, you're just asking the farmer to burn his farm down. and then hoping that you as a cow are going to figure out a way to make your life better somehow. And I go, you might kind of need the farmer right now because that's what the farmer's been doing with you for the last 12,000 years. You don't know any other way but being a farm animal, right? So just the idea that he's going to burn the fields and open the gates and everything's going to be better, what you end up doing is resetting the resource capture game. And the resource capture game starts with, like if you go back 12,000 years, if you're you and you're a big, tall, strong guy, and you look around and there's people like digging vegetables out of the ground, and you go, I don't like digging vegetables, but I can beat the hell out of those people and take their vegetables. That's better, right? So you go and beat the hell out of somebody and you take their vegetables. They're going to come along and find some big, strong guy to keep you from stealing their vegetables. So what happens is you end up in chaos, right? And chaos is an intolerable condition for most people for an extended period of time. You will always coalesce around leadership and things like that. So that's why the ANCAP thing sort of breaks down, because they think there is a rule that is going to apply to everybody that everyone's going to follow. And I go, there's not. There's no rules in this game. So if you live under the illusion that rules somehow work, then you always have this illusion that, oh, well, if we just fix the rules, but those aren't, they're paper promises, right? And they can be violated at any time. So if you reset the system to that, all you end up with is people come and steal from other people that can't defend themselves. So then they group up and try and defend themselves, and then another group comes along to try and defeat the group, and then they continually group up and group up and group up, and you end up with coalitions of gangs, and then the gangs coalesce into larger like city group gangs, and then those gangs group up to like nationwide type gangs, and you end up with a system that we're in right now, which is like the city-state empires became the nation-state empires, became now the global empires that are now becoming the corporate empires. But you always end up with empire with a hierarchy, with people that are best able to marshal resources, to control the people that provide resources or are resources, right? So you go smash the state, we're going to start over with Bitcoin Standard. You go, well, you're going to have people that are going to go take the fruits of your productivity until you get there, which means you're going to have to gang up with someone else. And someone's going to take lead of that, because if you don't have a leader for your team, then your team falls apart and you get overrun by people that do have better leadership and better coordination. So the natural inclination in chaos is to group up and form power hierarchies. And that gradually, given enough time, turns into the system we have now, or it'll turn into a different system. So when Saylor talks about like, well, you know, it's kind of nice that you can just go to a coffee shop and tap a card and you get a coffee. Or you can just walk in the studio here and just go, hey, well, here's some numbers on my computer and now I can have some studio time, right? Like if you reset that whole system and make it so someone else could just come in and go, well, now it's my studio, and now you have to do it a different way, and give me 3 pigs or you don't get into studio. I mean, the whole system collapses, right? And all the nice things that we take for granted collapse. So preserving those institutions and allowing the system to slowly sort of heal itself because there's a rule change, I think is a far superior method of increasing humanity's net good, net gain. And maybe it's not as satisfying to sit back and go, oh, well, you know, I want to smash the state. I don't want to pay taxes anymore. Well, yeah, those things will happen, right? Gradually, then suddenly. But as long as you can preserve the sort of vestiges of what we call civilization right now, that benefits everybody. And so my ongoing and consistent theme in this is like, now that the major economic players have a different rule they must adhere to, then they are naturally going to have their incentives align in the same way that like your incentives have aligned differently since you went on a Bitcoin Standard. My incentives have aligned very differently since I went on Bitcoin Standard. Everybody, if you go on Bitcoin Twitter and you look at people and you go, what was their life like before they said, I'm fully committed to Bitcoin. I want everything I do to be in Bitcoin. Almost immediately, everything in their world gets better. Like I've never seen someone go like, I went full in on Bitcoin and then my life just fell apart and I ended up alcoholic and I got fat, and you know, like every one of them was like, well, I started walking, I pay more attention to my family, I really value this more than this, I don't care about buying stereos anymore. Everything just got incrementally better over a period of time till their life is completely transformed simply because they changed their rule set and they changed what rule they're following. So I think that happens on the individual level, and I think amongst individuals that happens on a bigger level. And if you have the individuals that are the players that are now adopting that rule set too, then they fundamentally change as well. They can't help it. Like even Larry Fink and, you know, BlackRock, and you go like, oh, this guy's, however you look at the guy, he's a demon. He's a, you know, whatever, some tech oligarch, or he's a financier that's trying to control the world and, you know, implement whatever draconian thing people worry about. I go, well, he's now exposed to the Bitcoin rule set. And so whether he changes as much, like, I don't think Larry Fink is going to go sun his balls and, you know, go carnivore and start like walking 3 miles a day or whatever. But I think on some level, the decisions he makes is now grossly influenced by a rule that he has to play by. And he hasn't quite realized it yet, but he's slowly getting there. And if he gets affected, then everyone downstream from him gets affected. And everyone that's downstream from BlackRock gets affected. Like all the people that invest in BlackRock get affected. All the people that invest in strategy get affected. All the little treasuries around the world start getting affected. And, you know, whether it's a county government, city government, state government, whatever, they start getting affected. The way they do things starts getting affected. And all those little micro changes add up to a tidal wave of like, oh, the whole world is just different and better. Neat. And no one can say, oh, it's because XYZ reason. It's because, well, there's a billion different little micro changes that have occurred because of this rule that you can't change. And that's my like sort of, when I look at the world, I go, hey man, this place is about to be amazing. I think your socks are going to get blown off, and people, they just love hanging on to like, it's going to be terrible. We have to go through the collapse first. And I go, maybe, but, and I think people feel like they're unserious if they don't just say, I think things are getting better, right? Like you sound like, I don't know, like some sort of Pollyanna, some sort of asshole. Like people take you seriously if they go, you got to prepare for the worst, right? But if you go, things are getting better. But historically speaking, if you go, things are getting better, you're right more often than you're wrong, right? Like that's the more common sort of outcome. So I think it's hard for most people just to say out loud, you know, I think things are going to be better next year.
There's some psychology. I think there's some psychology going on with we kind of dismiss the bad things that happened in the past and remember only the good things. Potentially, yeah. If I talk with like my older uncles that are like 50, or like even my grandpa, like he turns 80 next month, and he always talks about the good things, and I specifically ask him like, what are like kind of the bad things? And like, this was really shitty, this was really shitty, this was really shitty. Like, that's way better now. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, we are romanticizing the past, but if you look at the facts. Someone that lives kind of poor middle class today, like everyone that is watching now probably can get the money to have an airplane to a different continent. So I'm pretty sure like most of the people that are watching here have, I don't know, like a few €100 in the bank account and like just put it there and like fly to another plane. Yeah. This wasn't even possible for the richest guy on earth. Like 50 years ago. Like that was like a pretty, like, oh, you can do this? You're superhuman. Right. So even like the poor middle class is doing, in a lot of sense, way better than the richest of the past. Right. They had maybe like huge castles and things like that, but like technology enabled a lot. And I don't know, like this weird saying of like saying, oh, it was so much better earlier on. No, by what standard? Yeah, like what are you measuring? Exactly. I don't know. Like most things are better. Like there's those weird pictures with the plane. It was like so much more spacious when you flew with the plane early on. Yeah, but the ticket was 10 way more. Like, only the richest of the rich could even fly a plane. Right, and you can still get that if you're the richest of the rich. You know. Yeah, and now you can fly from Vienna to Brussels for like $50. Yeah. Oh yeah, and I did. so it's super. Like that's awesome. I feel like, but the point that I actually wanted to get to is the changing power dynamics. So if Bitcoin is now changing the rule set and kind of changing the game. And there's always like a hierarchy and leadership still in that game. Yeah. And then there's players like a strategy with, I don't know, like 500, 600. It's kind of hard to keep up with how many Bitcoin they already now have. So that's a huge amount, of like 2% or like maybe soon 3% of the supply of Bitcoin. Yeah. Even higher if you account for lost ones. Right. Then you have like BlackRock. I think they're also over 1 million now. I'm not sure about the numbers. And then you have like the OGs that have like, oh, like I have like 10,000 Bitcoin like laying around here. And it's interesting to think about, oh, what will actually change if they have the Bitcoin? Is it then just a fiat system where like the guys on top like have a resource allocator and like they're doing those things? because then we still have those kind of hierarchies with like different people and having this Bitcoin.
Right.
And one more thing, and I think we agree actually on that, so it will be fun to talk about that. If you see Bitcoin as this rule changing, this game changing, and you kind of want to get to a point where like, okay, I agree that Bitcoin is amazing and I want to get as many Bitcoin as possible.
Yeah.
I kind of am stupid if I'm not getting the best out of the fiat system, getting loans, borrowing and things like that to actually maximize my Bitcoin stack. I personally been like really against that.
Right.
I don't do it also.
Yeah.
I tried it in the past and I just like didn't not like it on a personal like thing. But like sometimes I'm like financially, like it's almost like if you know what you're doing and you're not crazy with it, the risk, and like you get a good loan and like all those like basic stuffs.
Right.
It's a pretty good financial idea, but like ethic wise and like just like from my mindset, like I really don't want to do it. And then like there's those two hearts in my like,
yeah.
It kind of makes sense, but I really don't want to do it.
Well, what you're saying makes perfect sense. The second you understand that you're a resource and not a player, then you go, all of those tools are ways for the players to capture more resources, right? And the resource they're trying to capture is Bitcoin, which you can just go get. So if you go, well, I might not be a player right now. Like if you make a financial decision, nobody cares. Like you're not even a rounding error. You don't even count in the global economy. There are governments that lose more money than you spend all year and don't even think about it, right? So when someone comes along, like Strategy, Saylor is now a player. He went from being like a minor player, like he's a pawn, like he's now ramping up to be like a bishop or a knight. And you know, if the Bitcoin thesis plays out, he's going to be 100% the most powerful queen on the board that's ever been, right? Because he had the foresight to go, that's the capture. Because he's playing the game. He is a player of the game. We are not. We do not play this game at all. We are not. People go, I'm a pawn in the big system. No, you're not.
You're not even the pawn.
You're not even the paint on the board, dude. Like, So the second you realize, like, I'm not a player. I don't matter. I'm a resource. I exist as a resource for the players to collect. But I have access to the thing that they want to get, and they don't realize it yet. Maybe I should just get some of that resource and just sit on it for a while. So the Bitcoin thesis falls apart and you go, it didn't work. Some quantum alien technology came along and they just figured out how to, double spend unlimited coins or whatever. Then you kind of go, well, shoot, now I'm back to just being a plain old resource and trying to maximize how you avoid getting extracted from. But if the Bitcoin thesis holds, which I think there's a pretty good likelihood, 70, 80% probably, that, next 10, 15 years, we're still going to have basically Bitcoin like we have it now. Then I would go, well, the most powerful possible thing you could do is have the thing that all those guys are trying to capture and they can't steal from you. Because then you go, oh, well, now I'm a pawn because I have 0.3 Bitcoin or whatever, 0.1 Bitcoin. They go, oh my God, I really want that. And they will, but they can't just come and bonk you on the head and steal it. Every other property ever in the history of mankind, if you had something that was valuable enough, if you were sitting on a gold mine before gold was popular, and then someone said, hey, gold's popular now. Oh, who's got all the gold? Oh, Robin does. Oh, great. Go beat the shit out of him and take his gold, right? Like they're not going to come negotiate with you. They might if they're nice and there's a bunch of paper rules that said they should, but if you just sit there and go, no, I don't want to do that. They're going to go, okay, well, we have way more force than you do, and we wield it because of the paper that we hold and because we already control resources. We're going to orient all those resources to taking your resource. But if they can't do that anymore, then you become a pawn, right? So you elevate the plebs. The people that are stacking right now eventually become pseudo-players. They're pawns. They're still getting moved around, right? Like they're still subject to sovereign rule, sovereign authority. They can come jail you and do all kinds of stuff. But I think it becomes more economically literate for them to go, well, let's just try and get some Bitcoin out. What if we gave you an island or whatever? I don't know what it is. But it changes your role in the global political economy, which is why I also say, like, it kind of doesn't matter for the people that don't stack right now. Like if you're in, Namibia or whatever, and you're not stacking sats, you're just like collecting Namibian dollars or whatever it is, and you're just saving up to get your rice and porridge. Like the people that supply the rice and porridge are going to have better incentives and they're going to get you more stuff better, cheaper, because that's how they stay competitive with the rule change. So your life gets a little bit better as a resource, but those people continue to be resources because the game is still competitive resource capture. There's just a different rule in the game. But if you happen to be the guy who kind of stumbled into this resource and you just went, oh yeah, I just bumbled along and I saw some YouTube videos and now I'm capturing the most valuable resource ever in the history of mankind, I would say you should probably get down on your knees and go, thank you, God. I appreciate that because, wow, what a fortunate turn of events for me. So your life gets exponentially better, right? And your incentives are different though, right? Because you see the guys like Wen Lambo and all that kind of stuff, the crypto goons and whatever. They go, well, yeah, but I don't think that becomes important. Like when I see quote unquote Bitcoin people talking about, oh yeah, there'll be signs and they're showing some fancy car. I'm like, do you really get what you have right now? Because that is meaningless. It's as trivial to me as there was a great documentary about these, like Born Rich, I think it was called. And they talked to people like Ivanka Trump and like the grandson of the Johnson & Johnson family. And there was one kid in there that was very sort of forthright about the whole thing. Because like, he said, when I grew up, like I thought it was just normal that a 10-year-old kid would have like a horse and carriage that they'd ride through their estate. Like it didn't occur to me that other people didn't have this. And there's another kid that was heir to an English fortune and like his grandfather went out, or no, it was the family that owns Grand Central Station. He took his grandson, 6 years old, and said, this is yours. And you think about that, that's a public infrastructure. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people passing through. It's a rail station. They go, you own this. Like, what does that do to a little kid, right? But what the one guy said was like, look, if I wanted to go buy a Lamborghini right now, I can just go and get a Lamborghini. Like, I don't even have to think about it. It's not like, should I not? Oh, I don't know if I want to. I just have it if I want. So it's meaningless. You go, it doesn't. So the people that are striving for that and showing off for that and like trying to go, I want that little sensation of like, I'm a little bit better than Tom because Tom's only got a Bugatti and I've got a whatever. I don't even know what these supercars are called anymore. I don't even know if a Bugatti is a supercar. So, but the point is sooner or later you get to a point where it's either you're just like being silly or you're trying to peacock, but it becomes rather meaningless in terms of like how you project your social status, right? Because it's a triviality in the grand scheme of things. If you own Grand Central Station, buying a Lamborghini doesn't mean anything, right? So when I see the Bitcoiners that are kind of like, oh yeah, there'll be signs that I go, well, by the time you get there, it probably won't matter as much. And the things that will matter are like your time. Like money comes and goes, but time only goes, right? So how much time do you get on Earth? Like, well, focus on improving that. How much time do you get with people that you really care about and love and want to talk to? Well, I just want to focus on that. How much is a Lamborghini going to help you gain those things? No, not at all. But my ability to take a flight in comfort might go, oh, it's more likely that I'll take a trip to visit my grandmother in Hong Kong or whatever it is, gets improved. So you go, okay, well, I'm going to take more of those flights at the sacrifice of my Lamborghini or my Bugatti or my whatever, or my big rich house, or, So I think those incentives change as people recognize what this valuable property is, right? And I think that permeates through everything. So like people often ask me, because I say this stuff and they go, oh, they reflexively don't like what I'm saying. They're like, but that's not, I want, we smash the state, or I want more money, or I want, fiat trappings or whatever. And I go, well, yeah, but I go, well, so what's the future look like? And I go, I don't know. Like, I don't think you can predict what happens to a game. Like I said with the earlier soccer example, you go, what happens if you change this rule in soccer? Like, how does that game get played 10 years from now? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the same as today. I don't think you're going to have people flopping around and doing all this weird shit on the field and tripping people or bonking people. I think you might see a very different caliber of player come in because they can take advantage of the rule, whereas the traditional player might be hindered by the rule, you see? So it shifts the power dynamics on the field, it shifts team tactics, it shifts everything just because there's a rule you can't break. And so I think that happens in the global political economy, which I think means, what does the world look like 10 years from now? I go, well, I don't think it's going to be fast consumer culture anymore, but I don't think it's going to be just people living like the Amish and making their own butter. Like I think there's going to be somewhere in between, but I think the way the incentives align in a way that's like, what's most pro-human? And when everything aligns to what's most pro-human, then you go, oh, world starts looking pretty good. Like it's nice. Like things get better. Like there aren't people as starving anymore, and there aren't as people as suffering anymore, and there aren't as people. And if you elevate everybody, then the collective consciousness elevates. I think you've had personal experience. You go like, I go talk to Bitcoiners, and some are interesting, some are not. And every once in a while, I meet this guy. It's like he's got 200 followers, but wow, what an amazing person. You go, well, what happens when the global political economy elevates all of those people collectively, not just the Bitcoiners, but the particular craftsman who is right now just like all he's doing is devoting all his time to like carrying dirty water from a stream, suddenly has enough latitude to go, oh, well, I always wanted to work on my little XYZ widget. And then the world gets a little bit better in his corner. You go, hey, that's a pretty good thing. Not because he holds Bitcoin, but because the people that have sort of dictated his conditions up to that point hold Bitcoin. And now in order for them to keep collecting more Bitcoin, they have to make his life better. You go, oh, yeah. So now he is contributing, and then another person is contributing, and another. And you get this tidal wave of like the world looks very different. It's not iPhones and captured, like networks and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, well, everything is just different, improving, and all ideally pro-human, like things that make every human's life better. I go, that sounds great to me. I go, yay. Perfect. What a great outcome.
It makes me think of the point that Gary Cardone brought up just like a few weeks ago on the podcast, where he said he looked at Bitcoin and he saw the humans that went into Bitcoin, and he's like, oh, like those are really smart human beings that like get into the Bitcoin. Like, oh, but we are just in the beginning. And there are so many extremely smart people out there, like super smart people that don't get Bitcoin.
Right.
Because either it's not on their radar, or like they are too busy with someone else, or like something else, or they have a silly superstition about Bitcoin and they just like don't bother to look deeper.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of reasons why someone is super smart but still doesn't have Bitcoin.
Exactly.
It's probably like majority of the smart people are still not in Bitcoin, because the majority of people are not in Bitcoin. What happens to Bitcoin? How fast will this go when all like those smart people like more and more come in? And it's super interesting to think about the incentive of smart people coming into Bitcoin and slowly figuring it out.
Yeah.
It also made me when you talked about these power structures, I kind of thought about the conversation we had yesterday on the train about Elon Musk and the power struggle, and also with Donald Trump a few weeks ago with like the Twitter thing. What are they really doing, and what is the real intention? Because like we are not even pawns on that thing.
Right.
We are just like lucky enough to have Twitter and see like fractions of the conversations in real time. Yeah. And I have no clue, because like maybe they're sitting in one room and they're like, like they're laughing their ass off.
I'm gonna get you with this one, Donald. Yeah, watch this. I can't believe you said that, dude. While they're playing Xbox.
I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups, because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. And we have right now a summer sale going on for 15% off. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today for $186. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. I know how big of a hurdle it can be to have self-custody, but it's so freaking important to make that first step. We have to make sure it's as easy and simple as possible. And that's exactly what BitBox did. BitBox created the simplest and the easiest hardware wallet to use to get into self-custody. So get yourself a BitBox down from the link in the description. And when you use code Robin, you even get a 5% discount. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. The first time I ever made any money, I got myself from that money a watch. And ever since then, I collect timepieces to remember times where I achieved some milestone. That's why I got the Bitcoin 2025 edition when I went to my first ever American Bitcoin conference. So for me, the Bitcoin watches from Coin Vigilant represents the time that we are living in. For every person that wears a Bitcoin watch, I know they are representing sound money to the outside world. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. We have no clue about that. But we always think like, oh, we know like those things. That power structure thing really fascinates me. And we think, okay, we don't really know what the power structure is even now. How do we even predict what the power structure is in Bitcoin? Like that's like impossible for me.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's really interesting to think about that.
Yeah, thank you. I think so too. I mean, and that's sort of the neat thing about like what you brought up is very accurate, right? We have zero insight into what these players are actually doing and why. My thesis says, well, I can tell you what the goal is: capture as many resources as possible. That's been the goal since day one. And this is the late stage version of that game, right? Like where it's very refined. There's a sort of pseudo rule set. Everyone kind of plays by certain rules, but that doesn't stop things like, oh, we're just going to flatten this city this week. You know, you go, well, that's against the rules. Yeah, okay, whatever. You know, and how that kind of plays out. People will fuss and bitch and complain about it, but fussing and bitching and complaining is free. If you're a player and your cow is mooing at you, you go, that's too bad. The cow's mooing. But you're not going to go, well, I have to change my whole world to make it so the cow doesn't want to moo anymore. You just listen to it moo until it stops mooing, right? So, you know, like that discussion about Elon Musk, I thought was pretty fun because like people see the what they want you to see as a player, and they can assume and presume a lot of things, but they're coming at it from a frame of like, they're coming at it from a resource point of view. You go, I'm a resource, and if I was a resource, this is what I would be doing in that situation. You go, well, yeah, but they're players. They're the ones that are moving the pieces on the board. And so they have other reasons for moving those pieces. And I think one of the examples I said was like, well, just imagine if Elon was like, look, man, my stock is down like 30% since I took over this stupid job and everyone hates me now. People are burning my cars. And the Don is going, well, I really needed to make a big splash for the base to make them like show, hey, we're trying to root out corruption. And so we did that. That's pretty much done. Like we threw the red meat and everyone went, yeah, smash, and we got both sides arguing and bickering about like stuff. So we've got a lot of attention and a lot of energy and a lot of focus. Like all our resources are doing exactly what they need to do right now. They're just like fussing and fighting, and they're not really paying attention to the fact that like, oh, it's just business as usual. So how about if you just do this and I do this, and then that can get you kind of out of this and sort of give you some saving graces or whatever. You go, that's like a 2D chess version of it. You go, well, maybe, I don't know. Or maybe there's a third dimension to this that we aren't privy to. Or perhaps there's a fourth, or perhaps there's a power play going on, or perhaps Elon is trying to maneuver something and forcing his hand by doing this. And, like we have zero, it's all opaque to us. We just go, I don't know. Players are doing player stuff. Like no more than you can look into Gary Kasparov's mind and go, okay, he moved that because of this. You can think from your like pleb chess player mind, like I would make that move because I think this, but he's got some other thing going on that you would never have insight into. And the outcomes that he's predicting are far different than what you could possibly imagine. And so if you go, well, these are those guys, right? Like not in chess, but in the global political economy. That's the game they're playing. And they have teams of people, it's like, that are helping them make those decisions and strategize and move pieces around. But if you just remember, the ultimate goal is capture as many resources as possible. And right now, like Donald Trump controls a lot of resources, right? Elon Musk controls an enormous amount of resources. Those are very, very, very powerful players in the game. They're the queen and the rook right now, you know. And they're potentially battling or potentially cooperating, or, you know, like, but...
Do you have an opinion who's the queen and who's the rook?
I do not. I wouldn't even venture. I think if you take as true that Elon Musk is as smart as he presents himself, and you look at what he is like creating in the world, like we talked about this a little bit, right? Like he's got this great hustle. He goes like, I want the green dream. I want to electrify cars. You know, that's cool. And he's a great salesman and like electric cars of the future. If you ignore all the negative externalities of what electrifying the grid looks like and what battery waste looks like and what like cobalt mining looks like and lithium mining and all that kind of stuff and all the environmental disasters that creates, but you go, well, it does give you a lot of government subsidies and it makes your stock value go through the roof. And with that like massive valuation of your stocks, it also gives you a lot of free capital to devote to, I don't know, creating like the largest fleet of launch vehicles on the entire planet, which are basically ballistic missile technology by every stretch of the imagination. So you go, oh, that's kind of neat. Like one guy just happens to control as many potential ICBMs as Russia. Kind of neat. Or he's creeping up there, right? Like he's probably around France, or I don't know how many launch vehicles he has, but it's a lot. And it also let him create like this constellation of satellites that completely encircle the globe that are all potentially spy capable. And you go, oh, well, I just want to bring the internet to everybody. Neat, cool. And you also happen to enable the surveillance state like with unparalleled capacity. I don't think you want to advertise that if you're a salesperson, but that's what you have potentially. So we go, oh, well, but he seems like a nice guy. I go, yeah, because you know him real well, right? Like you've hung out with Elon and, you know, and so I don't know if he's the guy that's like, you know, or if he's like a legit guy that's going like, I want to try and make the world better. And we can't know, right? But all that valuation of his sales pitch of like, I've got green car company led to, I've got this vision of going to Mars, and go, well, maybe, or maybe you just are deeply embedding yourself with the military-industrial complex in a way that is going to make it impossible for you to extract yourself from that, or impossible for anybody to extract you from that. So is he the queen? You go, that's a pretty powerful position. Like I have the largest fleet of launch vehicles. I have spacefaring capabilities. I have satellite capability. I'm doing infrastructure projects. Oh, no, by the way, I just bought this Twitter thing because I really believe in freedom of speech, but I happen to have an AI company that happens to really need a lot of user data and a lot of interaction data. And somehow or another in the background, we just kind of maybe just sold that thing that seems like a terrible financial decision if you're a resource and looking at it. You go, why would you buy this thing that like 30% of the valuation is because bots interact with each other? You even bitched about it publicly. And people go, how come he doesn't fix the bots? I'm like, the same reason that he was publicly saying why Twitter is overvalued when he bought it, because the bots are a huge part of the value. So he cannot get rid of those because then the value of Twitter tanks or X tanks, right? So you go, why would someone do that? Because he really cares about freedom of speech. You go, okay, but does he really? And, that's an interesting source of data that you just happen to get, that you can just happen to feed your AI and you just happen to bury in the terms of service. Like, oh, by the way, we're going to feed everything you say and do and every picture and every tweet. We're going to feed that to the robot so it can learn how to be a better robot. Oh, that's kind of, well, people get all fussy because Google's collecting like, you know, they go, I can't believe it. I was talking about shoes and then I got a shoe ad. Oh, they're watching me. I go, well, now you're just feeding it openly. Like, here you go, you know. And he gave you Grok for free, so people are just grokking everything. Like, hey, what's this wart on my foot? You know, and like every health problem you have, every problem you have, you know, people using for therapy. And I'm just like, you guys are nuts. Like, you don't understand. Like, if you take as true, like, data is more important than advertising by a mile because that drives any number of other things. And you go, well, we're feeding this guy a bunch of data for free, and we've let him create launch vehicles for free, and we've let him create a constellation of satellites and surveillance apparatus for free, and he's potentially going to control the entire network pretty soon here, like the entire global internet. You go, why would you use terrestrial cables? And all he has to do is upgrade his network to go, hey, we got 6G, 7G, 10G. You can do terabyte downloads in 2 seconds, and people go, oh, well, I'm going to use Starlink instead of, why would I ever... and how's Verizon going to keep up? Like, well, we're going to go dig 14,000 miles of trench this week. Like, no, because Elon Musk can just go boop, 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 upgrade, like over the air upgrade to his network, and suddenly he's got higher throughput or capacity or whatever. I don't know. I mean, there's probably more to it than that. But the point being is that I can very easily foresee a future where that guy has he's the most powerful player on the board. So you might end up with Michael Saylor, who controls the most valuable property in the world, and you have Elon Musk, who controls all the apparatus of the world. And so maybe those two guys will be battling it out, and it'll be some glorious sword fight at the end of the movie, right? But in terms of like who's more powerful, you go, I don't know. Like, what do you think? Because one doesn't look as powerful because he doesn't have his button on the nukes, but he's not too far away. So...
I wouldn't bet against Elon.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So if I was a gambling man, I'd say probably 51-49 Elon right now. But, we'll see what the future holds, right?
Yeah, especially with Donald Trump is like temporarily, like he could be completely gone in like 5 years.
Yeah.
He still is a rich man.
He's still a player. Yeah.
He's still a player.
Yeah.
But the presidency comes and goes. And I don't think that he will be able to extend his leg like that. I think that's very, 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 very unlikely.
Yeah.
It's more likely that like JD Vance or like someone will continue that.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, Elon Musk is still there.
Yeah,
he still has his missiles, and he still has like these launch things, like it still has his Starlink and Tesla. Like he has all those cars that drive around on Earth and like map all of Earth and like the and he's digging tunnels because he not only the air, the ground, but also the tunnels he wants.
Exactly. So he's only getting in control of information, space and extraterrestrial defense and all that kind of stuff, and infrastructure, and so that's all. And AI. He's like a leader in the AI field. So you go, oh, what things is he in control of? Oh, everything in the future. Neat. Ooh, yeah. So
medicine and food is kind of missing.
Well, I think that's Gates is still trying to corner that market, right? So, but that's the nature of the game, right? Is like that competitive resource capture game tends to coalesce who controls what resources. I mean, we ended up with kings and queens for a reason. It's not because the game is somehow fair or something like that. Like that's the only way that game goes, is more and more resources concentrate in fewer hands until the game resets, right? Because something like World War I, there's kind of a big reset because most of the money and everything and control of resources occurred in Europe. And then World War II really, really reset the game and said, oh, well, we're going to move the concentration of resources to the Amerikaners. And then who knows where it's going to reset to next. But when people talk about like the fourth turning, or whether we're in the fourth turning, or whether we're at the end of the game or the beginning of the game, or there's going to be a collapse or the next cycle and yada, 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 I go, well, yeah, but they changed a rule in 2009 and it became like a permanently fixed rule in like 2024 when all the big economic players said, okay, Bitcoin good. Then you go, oh, the big players have adopted the rule. Ooh, interesting. Let's see what happens to the game now, right? And so you when you look at it, you go, oh, where do we go with this? Like, oh, what does the future hold now? And you go, ooh, I don't know, man. That's a pretty exciting thing. And I don't think, just based on everything I know about people and what happens when they adopt Bitcoin and what Bitcoin does to people and what Bitcoin does to incentives, based on all of that information that I've had, and it's anecdotal and it's personal, some of it, a lot of it, I go, I don't think it doesn't lead to war. It doesn't lead to destroy. It doesn't lead to collapse. It leads to fix, improve, find solutions, find common ground, things like that. I think that's where it goes.
I've only talked about the fourth turning in like one podcast, just like really barely.
Yeah.
What exactly is that? Like all the information I have is like there's like an 80-year cycle,
right.
And there's like those turnings, and like where are we in those cycles? There's a lot of debate on that, but like I imagine there's some people that are like, oh, like fourth turning. Well, like, what the hell is that?
Right.
What the hell is that?
Well, there was a book, I think it was written in 1996, and the guy, I can't remember the author's name, so you'll have to forgive me for that. But the essence of it, you nailed, right? It's like they're 80-year cycles, but it's sort of a generational thing that, you know, and it's sort of rooted in the idea of like weak times or, you know, or hard times create, you know, hard men, and hard men create, you know, this thing, and then that creates soft men, and soft men create weak times, which creates hard men. And so that's the nutshell version of what the theory holds. And a lot of it is sort of patternicity in a way, because you go, well, it looks like it matches this pattern, right? Like it looks like around every 20 or 30 years or 40 years or whatever, this cycle changes and this new group comes in and then this thing. And they sort of fix time periods. They go like, well, here's the American Revolution and here's the Civil War and here's World War I and World War II. And they go, see, this kind of lines up with our thing. I go, yeah, probably, but I also saw a dragon in a cloud once, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's a dragon, right? So there is some patternicity to it. But it also kind of holds up, like in terms of like at least an anecdotal framework to look at things, and it sort of makes sense, right? Like it's got a nice logic to it that you go, oh, okay, I can kind of see these are cycles that sort of perpetuate through history. And it just sort of depends on where you fix the start and stop and what you count as a transition and what's not a transition and things like that. But one of the big issues with history is people will say, well, you know, it's an epoch or it's a this or it's an era, or it's this or that and the other thing. But it's just a continuous unbroken line, right? Like you don't look at your life, the history of your life and go, well, this was my you know, infant era and this was my, you know, elementary school era. And then if you decided to do that, you could change those eras and go, well, this was the era that I was into swimming, or this is the era that I was into tennis, or this was the era that I was into race cars, or this was the era that, you know, I mean, so depending on what language you use and all that kind of stuff, that could change what those epochs or eras in your personal history look like. But the reality is you're just an unbroken chain. Like there was no time when like Robin shifted from this era to this era. It was just Robin just sort of gradually changed until Robin became this Robin, and then he grew and, you know, his hair grew and then fell out and then it turned gray. But it wasn't like, oh, this is the gray era. Like before this was the brown hair era and this era is the gray hair era. It's like, well, it just sort of gradually went. So it's an unbroken chain, right? So I think there is some merit to the theory behind the cycles as they lay it out in the book, but I don't know if that answered your question. It's basically a cyclical theory about how economies sort of rise and fall over time.
It's also maybe a little bit similar to the Ray Dalio theory of like how states and empires kind of rise and fall. Like if they're going good, the people get lazy.
Right.
That's why another state that isn't doing good, they're really working hard and they're building the wealth right. in the future, and like those up and downturns. It's really interesting theories, but you're right. Like it's like all playing into each other, and it's like more of like just a chain. And
right.
People really want to see like, oh, there's like an event coming when
right.
everything in fiat collapses and Bitcoin right. will kind of historical like come up and like there's like those
like
Jesus
a rising
moments.
Phoenix, yeah.
Like maybe
right.
Probably not.
Right. Yeah. Well, it doesn't benefit anybody to collapse the system, right? The only time it benefits someone to collapse the system is if they see a move to become a player in the system, right? So the people that are pushing for it are pushing to gain advantage to capture more resources. That's the only time it makes sense. And so if the resources are becoming so prevalent, then you kind of go, well, yeah, okay, so this is our new way to try and capture resources. We're going to start a war. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But like I keep saying, like when you change the rule in the game, you introduce an actual rule, then you go, oh, that's different. But when people talk about these cycles of the rise and fall of empires and states and all that kind of stuff, if you look at their historical analysis, they start with like, well, you know, in this year, this was the first empire. And you go, well, what happened before the empire was there? You go, oh, that doesn't matter. Well, just take it for granted that there's always been empires and there's always been kings. And I go, no. There wasn't always. There was a time before those things existed. They just didn't really write much stuff down. So it's really hard to parse out like, where did the idea of a king come from? They go, well, they've just always been there. I go, no, they were not. There's 50,000 years of human history where there were no kings. There was 50,000 years of human history where there were no states and no cities and no armies and no anything. And you can go still find tribes of people to this day that operate without those systems at all, and they think they're very foreign and sort of an insane idea. Like you go, what do you mean this guy owns land but he doesn't live here? How does that work? Like, no, yeah, because the government says, they go, what? Like this is all, because it sounds like a fiction. If you explained it to a 5-year-old, they'd be like, what? That doesn't make any sense at all, right? But we all accept it because that's the paradigm that we grew up in and we operate in, and we just accept as resources. We go, oh, this is how we act as resources, and we don't know any better, right? But if you unpack it before that, and you go, well, okay, well, those things came from something. And if that something is what I believe it is, which is like, oh, these are people that have been playing competitive resource capture game, and they're trying to capture resources, and this is what it looks like, and that's what it develops into. And you go, why did this rise and fall and this and that? And what's all the reasons? You go, well, because this player moved here and this player moved here, and then they took that piece because they didn't see this piece coming. So that was it. In the game of competitive resource capture, this person wasn't able to capture resources anymore. They got knocked off the board, and this new piece moved in. Well, it's because people got lazy because, or just someone had a better move, and that's what happened. Like this fell apart and this got better because of that. So if you go, well, it's a cycle. You go, it's no more a cycle than moving pieces on a chessboard. You go, well, how many cycles were there in that chess game? You go, there weren't cycles. It's just I made a mistake. This guy capitalized. I made another mistake. This guy capitalized. I was checkmate. That was it. Like there was no cycle to it. This guy was a better player than me. And so and chess is a great example because it actually has physical rules, right? You can't violate this rule. You're not playing chess anymore. And so that's a similar thing with the global economy, except there are no rules. Like I said, you can violate any rule at any time. As long as you wield enough power, you can violate all the rules. It might cause you to lose control of resources if you do it wrong. Like Adolf Hitler kind of stands out. He goes, hey, I'm breaking all the rules right now. And they go, okay, well, you don't get to play the game anymore. Oops. If he had won, you go, I'm making a bold move, you're doing some, like, put it back to the chess analogy, you go, I'm going to do this bold strategy. You go, well, that fell apart in your face, didn't it? You go, yeah. Oh, what happened? Well, I lost everything. Like, I don't get to play the game at all. I'm not even at the table. I'm, like, in a ditch with a bullet in my head, So but it was just a strategy to capture resources, if you boil it down. If you strip away all the artifice and you strip away the ideology and the stuff that they're convincing the resources why they're doing what they're doing, you go, oh, well, he made a power move, bold, risky, might have paid off, and it didn't. Sorry. So you don't get to play a game anymore. So, but other players learn from that. They go, oh, I was thinking about doing that too, and that didn't work out so good. So maybe I should try a different one. But they also have examples like Lenin. They go, oh, that worked pretty good. Like that guy he only had to kill like 20 or 30 million of his own people, but I don't know, he got to live a pretty good life, and he lived a long time, and he ruled for, Kim Jong-il or Un or it or that or whatever it is playing that game still. He's a power player, a minor one. He's probably like, I don't know, pawn, bishop, somewhere around there. But he's got a nuke, so, well, he gets to play, And he's, even in North Korea, like, if you just look at the messaging around that warship that just, right, 20 years ago, they would have said it didn't happen. They would have, nope. That didn't fail. That's just Western media lying and trying to make us look bad. This time they took accountability and they held people accountable for it. And they said, we made a mistake and we're going to fix it. And so that's an enormous shift that people, I don't think, gave much attention to. They go, well, that's a regime change shift there. I'd also point out they hold a lot of Bitcoin. So you can go, well, did that cause this? That? And I go, probably not. Right. And there's still that little thought in the back of my head. I go, well, he's playing by a different rule set too. He's got a rule he has to follow, and it's Bitcoin. So is the regime softening because there's Bitcoin on his balance sheet? I mean, he stole it. So, but he stole it by subterfuge and,
I guess people are obsessed with finding patterns where there might be no patterns.
Correct. I agree 1,000%. And that's the hardest part about that is for someone to go, like, I think it's what drives a lot of conspiracies, right? They go like, oh, it's better, it's more comfortable. Like when I was at the London School of Economics, there was a guy that lived in the flat 2 down from mine that was doing a psychology experiment, and he was researching conspiracy theories. And he said, well, what I found through my research is that, like, it's more comfortable to think someone is in control of this chaos. than rather just recognizing that it's all kind of chaos and no one's driving the bus and everyone is sort of moving pieces around just trying to get through it, right?
It's just driven from insecurity.
Yeah,
basically.
Correct. Yeah, human insecurity. And very natural and very normal. I feel it. You feel it. Everybody feels it. They go, man, it's a lot more comfortable to think like the cabal of evil, lizard people are driving all the...
I mean, it's the same with religion, right?
Yeah.
Like, people are like, oh, like there's God that he looks out for me. Like I pray and things will happen and stuff like that.
Yeah, potentially. I actually think, the older I get, I think there's merit to a lot of the religious philosophy and thinking, and because I think if you have a deference to a higher authority and higher power, I think there's something very human and humbling about that, right? And I think that helps orient people. And so whether or not you take on a structured view of religion or God or which God you choose to worship, there's probably 50% of the greatest physicists' minds in the last 100 years are very religious people too. And you go, well, how do you reconcile that? Because you know things about the origin of the universe. Or if you look at like biblical scholarship and you go, Moses didn't write the Bible. That it was, and it doesn't matter because it's not about like the facts of like it's about the greater being and the greater humility in the face of the universe, the uncertainty and the unknown. So rather than being the people that go, it's an epoch, it's lizard people, it's this, where they want to control the narrative so they can feel comfort. It's these people, the religious mindset, in my view, now says, well, there is something bigger than me and I can't account for it. So I will be humble in the face of it. And how you choose to adopt that. But I think it's a much saner approach to things, right? To say like, I believe in Jesus Christ, or I believe in Muhammad, or whatever flavor that you tend to go to. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be doctrinal and like rigid in your thinking about like, well, whatever is written on this piece of paper is what I do. But you can also humble yourself in the face of the universe and go, well, there are a lot of forces at play that I'll never understand, and what a miracle it is that I'm here. And so if that's God and that's God's design, then great. And if I can put my focus there and go, thank you, God, for the blessings I have, and have humility in the face of God and go, well, thank you for teaching me that lesson rather than wallowing in sorrow. These are all very, very powerful, very positive things, and a very positive place to put your faith rather than being wrapped up in the latest conspiracy, because that's net destructive, and that's the thing that gets promoted by the algorithms, is people getting buried and bogged down in like fear and anguish and distrust.
I see that a lot. They're kind of putting a lot of small puzzle pieces together, and they don't quite fit.
Right.
but it kind of looks like something.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I think this is here, this is here, this is here. Oh, okay, like it looks like a dragon. As from before, like, it is not.
Right. It is not.
Like, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a tiny, and it's also, I mean, science always changes. Like we thought different things about the world. We came to know later, like, oh, things are different.
Right.
There are probably things that we are 100% certain now that will turn out to be completely wrong. Like that's just like natural. Yeah. But that thought that like there's some evil people and like all those things, like the moon is cold. Like there's a lot of weird things.
There are, and I like I said, I think it's a lot more comfortable to think, well, at least someone's driving the bus. It might be some lizard person, but at least he's controlling this, right? He's got his hands on the wheel, rather than like, no one's driving the bus, dude. Like,
bus is just going downhill.
Yeah, the bus is going down the hill, and it's all kind of up to us to make sure that it doesn't run off the road and go over the edge of the cliff. And it's always sort of like it's the old saying from the recovery, like the addiction recovery people, like no matter how far down the road you get, you're always the same distance from the ditch, right? And that's sort of the global bus of humanity, is like, no matter how far down this road we get, we're always this far from the ditch. So let's try and focus on things that make the bus stay on the road. And the closer we all get to like collectively putting our hands on the wheel and going, okay, well, we all kind of want to go this way, then you end up with this really beautiful world where the bus, you worry less and less about the bus driving into the ditch. And there's less and less incentive to drive it in the ditch, so you can jump up and try and grab the wheel or put your hand on the pedal for a little while. And, I'm really straining analogies right now, but it's it's all sort of tying in my core theme.
If we stay with the bus analogy, it's like you recently just kind of grabbed a different bus. Like I don't know how to put that, but like you went from I know from you like Seinfeld, prison, and now Microseed.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot more to it, but like those are the three things I remember and know about. And I really want to talk about that, not only because I love what Microseed is doing.
Oh, thank you.
But more importantly, love how you did it. And we talked about so much the last 2 days about it, probably like I don't know, 5 hours on that topic. I don't know.
It was a great conversation.
It's really cool how you do it and what you're doing. So like maybe take us a little bit there, like why you took the step of going completely away from fiat, and you like had a peak fiat job and went completely all in Bitcoin and a Bitcoin company, in a deep Bitcoin company, like self-custody, like and how was the journey for you?
Well, that it was such a great transformation, and it kind of ties into what we were just talking about with like the personal transformation thing, right? Because I think if you go look at our podcast that we did a year and a half ago or something, like if you just look at my face, like I was probably 40, 50 pounds fatter than I am now, right? And I'm an old man, like an old fart, so it's you'll see people like on little YouTube videos go, oh, it's so hard to lose weight and this and that and the other thing. I go, yeah, if you're on a fiat standard, it gets really hard. And so that transition, like you said, I worked on Seinfeld for a long time, and I'm not like the name on the credits, so I'm not like hanging out with Jerry Seinfeld or anything like that. I was like one of the little like credits that go by at the past. Like I worked for a company that was one of those credits, right? So it's not like I was a mover and shaker in that industry, but it was an industry I stumbled into, and I got a lot of fiat gains out of it. And then later in life, like I said, I was kind of a late bloomer. I said, well, I think it was in couples therapy, as silly as this sounds. Like, I went to couples therapy because me and my girlfriend at the time were just arguing constantly. And this therapist, some Beverly Hills lady, it was like $200 an hour or something like that, goes, you guys don't need a therapist. You just need to grow up. Like, you're like hanging on to this weird thing about your childhood, and like you're going to like not do good in school because that's how you can get back at your parents. So you just need to go to school. And now me hearing that at $200 an hour, I'm like, well, I don't know, the lady I'm paying $200 an hour said do this, so I went, okay, I'm going to go do that. So I went and signed up for law school, like on a whim, literally just like out of the blue. I went and found where I could take the LSAT, which is the law school aptitude testing, and no research, no studying. I didn't know what it was. Like I walked in the room, and there's all these people from like these kind of snooty schools all around, just going, oh, like, well, what did you do to study? And I go, study? What are you talking about? And I just remember the look of like disgust and sort of horror on their face. And I still pulled out like a decent, like I think I shot like a 151, but there was literally like some questions that was like, no idea what this is, like just guess, And so it wasn't enough to get like you're not getting into Harvard with a 151 on the LSATs, right? But I got into like I was sort of joking with Michael from the Bitcoin Way. I said like there's the first tier law schools like Stanford, Harvard, Yale, and then there's the second tier, which is like if you go to a good local university and you work locally, that can get you there. And then there's a thing widely regarded as like third tier trash, right? Like it's everything below that. It's like the next 100 universities down. And so I was like in a fourth tier, kind of law degree. So when I finished that law degree, I was like, well, I'm going to go polish this a little bit. And I got a master of laws, and then I did all the legal research, which got me published and a lot of publishing, and that led me to the LSE. And then I shifted into public service, and I thought, well, and there was part of me that was like, well, because I published a bunch of papers while I was at the LSE as well, stuff on like drugs control policy and like police hiring practices and things like that. And I thought, oh, I should go on and get a PhD, but then I kind of saw what that world looked like, and I thought, I don't want to do that. I'm going to devote myself to public service. So I went and then took a job in the prison system. So I'm this overeducated law degree, master's from the London School of Economics, and yada, yada, yada. And about 3 months later, I was like a prison guard, like a guy going like, all right, bend over and cough. Yeah, okay, next, like barking at people. And so a very crazy transition, but I had this idea of like, hey, I want to help people. And so I ended up working in the prison system for about 4 years, and then I got an opportunity to run sort of like a juvenile detention facility, which is where I met Fritz, and so I ran that for a couple of years, and that sort of, the thing is, it's all very fiat, and it's all very, it's the worst kind of fiat environment you can be in. But I had come up with this Microseed idea because I was talking with Fritz all the time. We were doing our little podcast. It's Bitcoin Liberty Live. It's basically like me and Fritz on a Zoom call, like, talking to the void. We're getting more and more people to kind of come in and sort of appreciate what we have to say. But so from that, I remember I had a competitor's product, and I was looking at it one day, and it took me freaking forever to stamp this stupid seed phrase into this thing, right? This plate, and I was just like, God damn it. And like I smacked my hand twice with a hammer. Like I haven't hit myself with a hammer since I was 6. And this thing I hit myself twice, and I was like, like one of those like, like when you bite your tongue and you start hooting and hollering, and like go, there's no reason for it, but you're doing it anyway because it kind of sucks, right? And so I was in that mode, and it took, I think, 3 or 4 hours to get this thing. And I still had like 2 ghost strikes, and the words weren't quite right. And I was just like, fuck. And after all that trouble, I was like, well, what if I want to make a new wallet? Dude, I'll write it on a piece of paper, and I'll try and keep the paper safe, right? And then I said, well, what if I want to take it on a plane? Or what if I want to make 10 wallets for my family and put a little, do I got to go online and order like a bunch of plates and this and that? Like, I wish I could just put all of my seed words on just one little washer. I don't want to have a stack of washers. I don't want to have like a roll of quarters in my pocket. I just want something small, hard to read, but like if I look at it with a magnifying glass, I can see it. But if I go through TSA, I can just put it in the change drawer with the thing. I can cover it up. I can hide it. I can bolt it to the back of my fridge. I can put it underneath my chair. Nobody knows what it is. Even if they find it, they're probably going to throw it away, yada, 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 right? And I thought, oh, how do you do that? And it was literally born from that. Like, I really want something better than this because it's cool. It's a great solution. I don't have any problem with it. It's great. Like, protects it from fire, yada, yada, yada. I wanted all those same benefits without the specialized media, without the annoying process. And so I just started building stuff. Like, I just started engineering a solution to that. And from that came the Microseed, which is a thing that I love. And like, we just introduced it to Bitcoin Vegas just recently. It was awesome because I got to see firsthand, like, because you can think, oh, I got a pretty good idea here. And like, I made one, and then my friends were like, dude, I want one of those. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, there's people kind of like this. But I took it to Vegas, and the hardest thing for me is like overcoming that first, like, they go, oh, what do you got here? I go, oh, you put your seed phrase on a washer. They go, oh, yeah, I've seen that before. You get like a bunch of washers, and you stack them and put the bolt. And I go, no, it's just one washer. They go, yeah, you put one word on a washer. I go, no, it's all words, one washer. And they go, oh. And I go, and so that was the birth of it. So it's this very accurate device. It's very easy to use. It literally takes like 20 minutes to stamp your entire seed phrase into the thing. And you can get in titanium. You can literally go to the home improvement store and buy 50 washers for like $10. You could make 50 wallets that day, and it'll probably take you 2 hours to do all 50 wallets. So like I said, there's a little table there that lines the punches for you. It's all very accurately machined. It took a ton of time and research and prototyping just to get this thing to work and figure out how to do it. And not only make it work, like there's lots of very expensive ways to make this work. It just took me forever to figure out the way to make it work so it's like feasible to like make it for other people, right? Rather than making a specialized machined product. This is something that can be somewhat mass produced, and it still requires like this really, really intricate machining process, but it works great, And so that reception at Bitcoin Vegas was that. And so it was right around the time that I was really burning out on the fiat job and really burning out on the idea of like being embroiled in, and this thing was starting to come into play that I just went, and it's your podcast, hearing you and Jeff Booth are the two biggest voices in my head, always going like, where are you putting your energy? Where are you focusing your time? Where are you doing this? And so I think a lot of people, when they go like, I'm going to go on a Bitcoin standard, right? They wait until they are kind of set up, so to speak. So they go, I know how this is all going to work now. And I went, I'm done. Like, I'm dying literally from working in the prison and working in the jails. Like, my body is dying. And and I say this not lightly, there was a study by the Oregon Health and Sciences University in the state of Oregon where I worked in the prison system. So what's the average life expectancy of a prison officer in Oregon? It's 58 years. The average life expectancy of a normal male human being is 75.
Oh, gosh.
So just being a prison officer will cut, 17 years off your life on average. You go, wow, that's pretty bad. What are the rates of PTSD amongst prison officers versus like combat soldiers? It's about 15% higher. You go, so people that went and like shot up, people and watched their friends get blown up have lower rates of PTSD than the guy that's standing in the prison going, knock it off. Hey, get off your bunk. Like that kind of like. So if you just think about what that's doing to you on a day-to-day basis, and I immersed myself in that for 5 or 6 years, you go, oh God. But my health was deteriorating. I was not in good shape. I was getting fat. I was getting all kinds of, it was bad, right? And so when I took that moment, I went, I'm just going to focus on this Microseed thing. I think it's a good idea. I don't know, but I don't care. I'm just going to go do this. And so that's what I did. I just went, I want to focus on helping Bitcoiners. I want to focus on making something that is helping the Bitcoin ecosystem, helping people, and is Bitcoin focused. It's not about like, I don't want to come up with some ding dong coin or some, treasury company or whatever it is that people are doing now. So it's sort of a pure product. And then when I went to Vegas, people loved it. They were just like, man, this is so amazing. This is so great. And so it's been doing really, really, really well. So that's the 45-minute version of like how I went from, Seinfeld working on TV shows to getting the research and doing all the research degrees and things like that to the Bitcoin standard. But prior to that, I wrote a book. It's called The Great Realignment. And that was my other sort of contribution to the ecosystem. And a lot of the stuff we've been talking about today is kind of contained in a lot more detail in that book. It's not easy to read. It's very kind of academic-y sounding, or at least academically oriented. But it encapsulates this in a lot greater detail. So that's the sort of chain that got me to.
And I think in the first episode we did, I think the book wasn't finished, if I remember correctly. It was like kind of work in progress, but already public. I don't know where you posted it.
It was Medium. I was on
Medium. It was in Medium. Yeah, exactly. I remember it was kind of public, and I love the approach of like writing and getting real-time feedback.
Yeah.
And now it's finished and all that. Yeah. And now there's Microseed also. Like that's just like really awesome.
Thank you. So that was my shift to get right into full-on Bitcoin. My whole ethos is like, I just want to give more than I take. And I kind of feel like as long as I'm providing more value than I'm receiving, then I'm doing good, So hopefully Microseed becomes that vehicle to be that thing, and the book can help kind of get there and things like that. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, thank you, man.
We have a returning guest question. I don't know how to call that.
Oh, no.
That I ask each and every one of my guests. And it's the question of what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin? That's the question for the normal guests. For like the question for the returning guest is, what have you learned since you have last been on the podcast outside of Bitcoin?
Outside of Bitcoin? I have learned that the global political economy and supply chains are far more complex than anybody gives credit or weight to. And now being someone that was directly affected by things like the tariff wars and being directly affected by like supply shortages and what that looks like and how goods and services move around the globe, absolutely transformative amount of information from the last time we talked, because I had no idea what any of that stuff was. I just bungled into this thing. It's like, oh yeah, there's no problem. I'll just set up like international supply chains and sell this Microseed thing. It'll be easy. And there's more to it than that. So that's what I learned. The world is a very, very, very complex place, and I kind of had an idea of that, but I have a very relatively simple product. So if you talk about like,
how many hours did it take you roughly to understand? Oh, I have to put those things together, and like customers think like, oh, like there's this box and like there's a hammer and like thing like I'm tick, and I have my Microseed and like set it up, and it's like really easy.
Yeah, piece of cake.
How many hours did it roughly? Obviously, hundreds of hours to figure out how to do the supply
chains. How to get all that and how to get it to work together and how to scale it to a place where it's feasible to make it. Hundreds of hours, if not thousands, and if you add in like the time, like all the prototyping and all the like, oh, this doesn't work, why not? And trying to figure it out. Not to mention I had to like do things like teach myself CAD and teach myself 3D printing and then teach myself like machine work and machining and machine tolerances and the manufacturing tolerances and the manufacturing language. And then you talk about the ISO standards and this and the other thing, like it's hundreds, if not thousands of hours. So yeah, it was just so I can finally put this thing in a box and send it to somebody. And they go, oh, cool. Oh, that kind of works good. I'm like, thanks. It's kind of what it boiled down to. So, yeah.
It's awesome. Great job, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have an end routine, as you know, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest.
This was the thing I was worried about.
The previous guest asking a question for the next guest. And the previous guest was Giovanni from the Power Law. And he asked you the question, what do you think about the Power Law? What do you like about it? What do you don't like about it, and why?
I got into a brief discussion with Giovanni on X ages ago, and I said, this is much ado about patternicity, meaning it's much ado about like seeing dragons in clouds. And wow, like Fritz met him at Portland and said, oh, he's such a sweet guy. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I felt comfortable just kind of there's no reason for me to voice that opinion on his little feed, but I just go, I don't like that there's someone like peddling this like trading strategy around this thing that I go, that doesn't really hold up. And wow, he did not appreciate that at all. So I went, gosh, man, you're not very nice, And then I brought up some other point. It was something to the effect of like, well, yeah, you're measuring this in USD, but that's like a variable. Like that's not a fixed thing that you can go, well, this network theory applies to this thing because of this, and this power law applies because of this. And it also ignores like, bubbles and crashes. Like you didn't account for like 2021 or 2020 or whatever it was, and you didn't account for the 16,000 drawdown. And so there's always like reasons why, and here's a bunch of complicated math that I know you don't understand, so that's why you're wrong. And I go, well, yeah, but it doesn't change the fundamental reality of what you're talking about, right? And so that's I'll just leave it at that. I go, I don't think there's much stock in it. They're neat to look at. They're kind of fun, just like it's kind of neat to look at dragons in a cloud and go, oh, neat, it's a dragon. Oh no, now it's a clown, But I don't put much faith in it, and I think you just fix an S curve to it, and you kind of go, well, that's what it's going to look like, probably, right? So, but I certainly won't debate the man over it. I just don't put much stock in it, and the reasons why, because I think there's a lot of like patternicity to it. There's a lot of seeing things that like fitting things like the puzzle pieces where you go, I see that all fits, and you go, I think that's supposed to be a tree, dude, and that looks kind of like a dragon. No, it's a dragon, So that's I don't know if that answers the question. I'm trying to be delicate about it.
And the thing that always puts me off is also the US dollar thing. And I actually talked with him about. I'm asked him that very question of like, I get that the adoption might actually follow some kind of network effect, some kind of like power law, some kind of like growth trajectory, like that could I can wrap my hand around that.
Sure.
But the US dollar, and he said it, like I asked him, is the US dollar deflation, or like is the US dollar inflation and devaluation a power law? And he's like, no, it's an exponential curve. You can clearly see devaluation is exponential.
Right.
And like, okay, but if the underlying thing that we are measuring, the Bitcoin price is exponentially going devalue, how can the Bitcoin price be an power law? Right. He gave me an explanation that I did not understand.
Math, right.
So I don't know if I didn't understand it because I'm not smart enough, or I did not understand it because like, it made no sense. But there's some merit to it. I'm just curious and asking questions.
Sure.
I don't debate people.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, just power law in general is subject to a bunch of academic debate, so that's not a foregone conclusion. That's even a thing, even in nature and things like that. There are people that go, well, that actually, if you just do this, the math works out to this better. So that's my, I think we're getting lean on time, so I want to be respectful of that. But that's my, I'll leave it at that. How about that?
It's too interesting to talk with you. That's the problem.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's very generous of you. Thank you.
But before I let you go, where can people find you? Where can people buy Microseed? Microseed.io, I guess?
Yeah, microseed.io. You can go check it out. It's go buy Microseed. They're awesome. Please don't keep your seed phrase on a freaking piece of paper. Like, it only takes like 15 minutes. I swear to God. I hate shilling stuff. Like I was telling you the other day, I have trouble selling donuts to fat people. It's not my thing. I'm not here to push anything on anybody. Get some solution, whether it's my competitors or mine. I think mine is just a more elegant solution. But it's just, please back it up on something. If you go get a chisel and scratch it into a piece of metal, that's better than keeping it on a piece of paper. And if you're not taking self-custody, please do that. So
there are too many stories of where the girlfriend threw away the paper.
Yeah. Dude.
And I'm like, don't do that.
That makes my stomach hurt, you see.
First of all, educate your girlfriend.
Yeah.
But then also, like, don't keep it on paper. Like,
right.
It's your fault at that point. If you have it on a paper and she throws it away, she did a good job. Like, she should throw away that paper.
Yeah, she was cleaning up. Yeah.
She was cleaning up.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff. So microseed.io if you want to check that out, or you can find me at 21E15 Microseed on X, which is the product account, which I don't, it's basically me, so I don't know why I bifurcated it. But sometimes I say kind of saucy things on my Daniel 21E15 handle on X. So I wanted to make sure that my sauciness didn't bleed over into the business more than anything. And you can check out my book if you want. It's on Nostr. You can just follow my profile on X and get to Nostr. Daniel 21E15 on Nostr. But you can read the whole book for free. You can get it on Amazon if you want. I'm not here to shill books. Like, just if you like paper rather than reading online. But everything is there because it's, like I said, I'm trying to give more to the community and more talking points, more information, more context, more things to think about, and hopefully give a more positive message. This is sort of what I'd like to see. So
awesome.
Take self-custody, protect your seed phrase, and the world's going to get better. So
amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
Daniel.
man. I appreciate it.
And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.